And we're back here at Coast to Coast Sports, the only show for the fans, by the fans. I'm Michael Fiumefreddo. It's been a while. I missed you guys. School's been really hectic right now, so haven't been time to film the show, but there's a lot of news that we would love to catch you up on, but we're going to get into the stuff that's happening this week and next week as well. We got the Masters Golf Tournament coming up again. We'll give you some betting picks for that. As well as, I'm a huge Jet fan, USC fan. I'll give you my perspective on the whole Sam Darnold trade later in the show. But at first, I want to talk about how, if you saw the last episode and then followed the NCAA tournament, you realize that through the first couple rounds of the tournament, I had a terrible bracket. But, like I said, it all comes down to the champion. And for the third time in, I think, the last 4 years, not to toot my own horn, which I do all the time on this show, but I picked Baylor, and they are the national champions. They defeated Gonzaga by 86-70 on Monday, ended their perfect season. And when you looked at that game, they basically dominated in every sense of the word. Three-pointers, rebounds, defense. Gonzaga couldn't get anything going. And we can't talk about Gonzaga without them talking about Jalen Suggs and his big shot against UCLA 2 nights before. Great day for me, USC lost earlier in the Elite Eight to Gonzaga, and then UCLA suffered the same fate on a much worse shot. But it ended their perfect season. Props to both teams that played. But like I said, this really came down to what I said from the start, and that's which teams can shoot the three. Now, Baylor, talking about going into this, we said they were the best three-point shooting team in the league. Or going into the tournament, the field, and they proved it. They went 10 for 23, hitting 43% of the shots, whereas Gonzaga only went 5 for 17 at 29.5%. So when you look at the numbers, Baylor hit 10 threes, Gonzaga hit 5. The final score was 86-70, so 16 points. Baylor scored 15 more points on the three ball than Gonzaga did. And those points add up. And you can't really rely on Drew Timme to just drive into the lane and take layups every time. And you can't rely on Jalen Suggs to pull up from half court and bank them in at the buzzer. But Baylor really showed that three-pointers do win the NCAA tournament. Not so much having one of the best offenses in the league, which Gonzaga did. They had the most points per game out of the field. But Baylor showed where it counts. And another spot it counts, and I've been noticing this a lot more through basketball, is how important the rebounding is. Now let's look at the offensive rebounds numbers for Baylor and Gonzaga. Gonzaga, who, when I watched them play against USC, out-rebounded us on both ends of the floor. That was one of the biggest things. Evan Mobley, Isaiah Mobley couldn't really do much against Drew Timme and the rest of the team, but the offensive rebounding wasn't there for Gonzaga. They lost that battle 16-5. Which is ridiculous considering the amount of points you could probably score getting 16 offensive rebounds for Gonzaga. All right, so a little hiccup here in the show. We just got a phone call. It happens, live television, anything can go. But let's shift gears now. Congrats to the Baylor Bears on winning their championship there. Also, congrats to Stanford on winning the NCAA women's tournament as well. This happened that past weekend. But let's shift gears now to the NFL and the quarterback carousel that I've been very intrigued by this season. And like I said, it hasn't really been that interesting. Guys are just going back to their normal teams. Cam Newton, one of those guys. Andy Dalton, a surprise signing by the Chicago Bears. No real movement on the other ends of the spectrum, such as a lot of people thought Tua would be gone in Miami. They'd look to move on, but looks like he's staying, and the Dolphins decided to make some draft trades as well. And we'll talk a lot more about that when we do our draft coverage a couple weeks from now. But the first real big move of the quarterback carousel was that Sam Darnold, my guy from USC and the New York Jets, got traded to the Carolina Panthers. It was for a 6th-round pick in this year's draft, a 2nd-round, and a 4th-round pick in next year's draft. So the Jets, adding to that draft capital that we already talked about, they have so much of this year. But I'm going to give you my perspective as both a USC fan and a New York Jets fan, and then both. So as a USC fan, I want to see my guy Sam Darnold succeed. And I think he's in a great spot with the Carolina Panthers. They're a young, up-and-coming team in a little bit of a tough division, but we talked about New Orleans, how they're going to start to fall off, how Atlanta might have to start a rebuild in a few years. Tampa Bay just won a Super Bowl, but Tom Brady looks to be retiring next year. A lot of those guys just got under contract again, so they're going to be a tough team to beat regardless of who's at quarterback. But this is an easy division for the Carolina Panthers to win with the right quarterback. And like we've been saying, Sam Darnold deserved a shot. And now I think he's going to get one with the right offensive pieces, the right offensive coaching. Look at it. You got Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in the league right now in the backfield. DJ Moore and a good friend in Robbie Anderson that Darnold already has the connections with from New York. Those two receivers are going to be phenomenal. And with the 8th pick, I could see them potentially adding either Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase. So you have potentially four great weapons for Sam Darnold that would arguably be better than anyone he had on the Jets. And pair that with the head coach, Matt Rule, and the offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, who, if you recall from a few months ago, I said I wanted Joe Brady to be the coach of the Jets. I think he's a great offensive mind, knows how to get his pieces involved. Look at what he turned DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel into last year. Robbie Anderson was the 3rd guy, had an 1,000-yard season. This was a team that was supposed to rely on Christian McCaffrey, but still excelled when he went down last season. So I think with Sam Darnold at the helm over Teddy Bridgewater, this team looks like they're going to be competing, and I could see them sneaking into a playoff spot at like that 6 or 7 seed. Now, as a Jet fan, I do have mixed feelings because obviously I wanted to see Sam Darnold have his shot. I thought, get rid of Adam Gase. I think he'd be a phenomenal player. Surround him with great talent this year. Maybe get Penei Sewell at the 2nd pick. Whatever receiver is available later on. Maybe add in a running back like Chuba Hubbard. And they did sign some guys, the Jets did, in the offseason, including Tevin Coleman. They also signed Keelan Cole and Corey Davis to go along with Denzel Mims and Jamison Crowder, who are already there. So I think you got to bring on the Zach Wilson era now. He's a guy we've talked about. Personally, I wanted to see him maybe sit a year behind a veteran that's going to maybe develop him, let him learn the ropes. But there's a reason he's shooting up draft boards right now. And that really because he's shown off what he can do on a football field through his pro days, through the game film. I think, and I've heard it before, that a lot of teams like quarterbacks from those mid-major schools because they're not playing on a Pro Bowl roster with an offensive line that would be dominant in the NFL. And we know the Jets don't have an offensive line like that. So why would a guy like Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields succeed when he's getting hit every 5 seconds? I don't know. But Robert Saleh, our new head coach, said he thinks Zach Wilson has unbelievable arm talent. And I think whereas Trevor Lawrence, he's like a quarterback you'd create in a lab, I think Zach Wilson fits the mold of what the modern-day NFL quarterback could be. Strong arm, can make the throws, he can get out of the pocket, he can scramble. He's an all-around guy that can really play football, and I think he's going to do really well in the New York Jets. Now, as a fan of both teams, I'm not going to say which one I have higher hopes for, whether it be the Jets or Sam Darnold, but I'll let you know at the end of the season. And I've gotten asked this 100 times. How do you feel about Darnold getting traded? And I said, I don't know. Because the media works one of two ways. Either Sam Darnold has an amazing year, makes a Pro Bowl, makes the playoffs, and Zach Wilson struggles in his first year. Everyone's like, oh, the Jets made a mistake. They should have never traded Darnold. They should have stuck with him and picked up some weapons. Or it could be the opposite. The Jets made a phenomenal move. Zach Wilson wins Rookie of the Year. Sam Darnold flames out, gets benched by week 10. I mean, it could go either way, and we're just going to have to wait and see. So I'm rooting for both of these guys. I hope they both succeed. But when it comes down to it, I'm going to have to let you know how I feel about this trade at the end of the season. Now, shifting gears onto our last topic, I wanted to talk about the Masters. We already saw the Masters play out in October and November of last year because of COVID, but they're running it back at the right time this year. The April Masters, one of my favorite golf events just to sit down and watch. I'm going to give you some bets here. And what I think is really smart about golf betting is you can bet on a guy where the guy finishes. And that's whether he's a top 5 finisher, whether it's top 10. And this is where you really make the money. You're not going to bet on a winner and hope for the best. You need to win these little bets because this is where you make the money. So I'll give you a top 5 of my favorite bets this year, and then I'll give you my outright winner at the end. But coming off at number 5 is last year's champion, Dustin Johnson. I think he's a lock to finish in the top 5 at plus 160. He had a historic run last year of 20 under par, won the entire thing by 5 strokes, and he's shown no signs of slowing down. He's going to be phenomenal again this year. He knows the course. He knows how to win. I think if he doesn't win, he's a lock for the top 5. And this is where the Masters gets interesting because you separate the top golfers from the weak golfers. You don't see random guys who are like in the 20s and the 30s in the FedEx Cup rankings and come out and win Augusta. It's always between those top 10 guys every single year. And it's whoever's on at one of the days just goes on a run, that's the guy that's going to win. And I think there are some slots, though, where new guys do come in and dominate. And like a guy like Victor Hovland, I think he could finish in the top 10. Now, the bet here is plus 210. This is a guy that's number 4 in the FedEx Cup rankings right now. And in golfing matches where he's gone up against some of the same competition, he's had 7 top 10 finishes this year in 12 events. And that includes 1 win and 2 second places. So if you're feeling risky and want to bet on him in the top 5, it could happen. But I think we'll keep it conservative here. We're going to go with Victor Hovland in the top 10. I think it's his first time at Augusta probably, so it's going to be very risky for him. But look for a guy like Victor Hovland, an up-and-comer, taking on some of the veterans like DJ. And my next guy who I want to talk about to finish in the top 10, who's Rory McIlroy. And I wasn't going to really bet on Rory. I think he's kind of hit or miss. But then I saw that for a top 10 finish, he's plus 120. Now, we're talking about a guy who's been here before. He's a veteran of the Augusta course. He finished in the top 5 last year. And he's always a guy that's favored to win. So when you're talking about a guy that's always in the favorites to win, was in the top 5 last year, can have another top 10 finish anytime he really wants, you're going to have him at plus 120 where you can make some serious money on that? I would take that in a heartbeat. I think that's a lock. And that's really one of the only ones I can consider a lock in the 5 that I'm giving you. So if you're going to choose any of my advice, take any of it. Rory McIlroy, top 10, plus 120. Moving on to number 2, I like Jon Rahm to finish in the top 5 at plus 200. This is a guy that's consistently there. He hasn't really won anything big in a while, but when you're talking about seeing the leaderboards, he's always on that first page. 3, 4, 5. Came in 7th, tied for 7th last year. So if he's having a good weekend, he could either win, he could finish in the top 3, he could finish in the top 5. I'll keep him at the top 5 right now at plus 200. And for my number 1, I'll give you my outright winner, and that's Bryson DeChambeau. Now, last year I talked about how I didn't think he would do too well, and I had Danny Vaccaro on, my cousin Frankie on as well. They really liked Bryson. They thought he would win it. I said they cursed him. That's what Danny did because from a while back, it's a running joke, but Bryson DeChambeau was a little bit of a disappointment last year. Finished at -2. But Bryson DeChambeau's a guy that learns from his mistakes on a golf course. Bryson's a guy that studies, and he's a long ball hitter. He's good around the greens. He can play golf. This is a guy that studies the course and figures out ways to play. I heard there was a few weeks back they had to change the boundaries for a hole so Bryson couldn't hit a drive over through another hole and have an advantage, but this is what he does. He figures out the way to manipulate the course for his favor. And you'll see guys this weekend who on a shorter hole, they'll club down. Bryson could, well, maybe he'd drive on that hole, maybe try and drive the green. That's just the way he plays golf. I think he's on a revenge mission right now for this year's Masters, and I think he's going to win it. The bet's at plus 1,000. I think I'm going to take that, but we're just going to have to wait and see till Sunday. But Bryson DeChambeau, lock him in as my pick for this year's Masters winner. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. I don't know if you heard the music going on outside, but it's a beautiful day out here in sunny California. And I'm going to have to go hang out there, get some tan. I was just in the Bahamas. Didn't really have the best weather. But that's going to do it for me. Once again, I'm Michael Fiumefreddo, signing off on Coast to Coast Sports, the only show for the fans, by the fans. We'll see you next time.